What justifies optimism? Glass is half full, glass is half empty. They're both correct. So why do you prefer optimism over pessimism? Everything could go wrong. Yes, true. Everything can get better. Also true. Which is more true? So is there any wisdom to being optimistic over pessimistic? Or it's just a flip of a coin? Some people are just, easygoing, so they're optimistic, and some people feel responsible and concerned, and therefore they're pessimistic. There are two possibilities. Things might get worse, things might get better. How do I choose between these two possibilities? They're equally possible. I don't know, statistically, I don't know. But certainly in terms of possibility, they're both equally possible. Well, let's just take that as a point of argument. Intelligence dictates that I choose the possibility that furthers and enhances my life. I had that famous joke about, I read in the papers that if you smoke, you get cancer, so I'm not reading papers anymore. Do you stop smoking or do you stop reading papers? Well, which one is going to do you more good? Be pragmatic about it, not philosophical. You can't determine which possibility is more real or which possibility is more likely. What you need to decide is which possibility serves you. Again, it means the possibility of things getting worse, God forbid, enslaves you. But it's possible. But it could happen. And so I can't sleep at night. It might not happen. Yeah, but it might happen. So it's destroying me. And what is destroying me? Something that doesn't really exist. It's a possibility. And that is ruining my life. Why would an intelligent being pursue a thought that is destroying himself? So there's the Mishnah, which we've talked about before as well. The custom and the mitzvah is that on the night before Pesach, after having cleaned the house of all obvious known leavened products, you then have to search your house in the nooks and crannies to see whether there isn't some crumb, some leftover, some practically invisible piece of cake or cookie or pasta or some wheat product that may have risen. So you take a candle and you go from room to room and you poke under the furniture and in all the nooks and crannies that you don't usually check to make sure that there is no chametz in the house, because you're not allowed to possess chametz during Pesach, not only not eat it. So now in the first laws or details of this mitzvah, ridding your house of chametz, you check a room with the candle and you determine that there is no crumb of chametz in the room. Now you're going to go check a second room. While you're checking the second room, isn't there a possibility that somehow a piece of chametz or a crumb found its way into that room? It's been a half hour. Could the dog have dragged something in? The cat? A mouse? Shouldn't you go back and check again? The Mishnah says no. Don't go back and check again. Why? Because we do not suspect that a mouse brought a crumb of chametz into the room. And why don't we suspect it? Because how will that suspicion ever end? You check the room again. Now what? Well, keep checking it. But you have to check every room. Well, then keep checking it. Just keep going around and around and checking and checking and checking. We could spend yontif that way. So the conclusion of the Mishnah is, don't do this because there's no end to it. How can you ever guarantee that there is no possibility of chametz in the room when the chametz could have come from another room, from another house, from down the road, from the sea, the ship at sea that just came in from another country? You know how things travel. So there's no end. Therefore, don't bother to check again. But here's the real power behind the message. It's not just don't check again. It's don't suspect. Don't even suspect. Well, look, there is a possibility. What do you mean, don't suspect? Are you saying there's no possibility that a crumb came into the room? It's been 3 hours. It's been 8 hours since you checked that room. Don't you think you should check it again? So instead of just saying, no, don't check it again, the Mishnah says, don't suspect. Don't suspect that a piece of chametz found its way into the room. The next halacha, the next Mishnah says, if you check a room and it is completely free, devoid of any chametz, and then you see a mouse run through the room with a piece of bread in its mouth, now you got to go back and check. Why? Because there's a piece of bread somewhere. The mouse took it somewhere. Now go back and make sure you didn't bring it to this room. And once you've checked, no further suspicion. In other words, when there is an actual piece of bread running around somewhere, then yes, go back and check it. Because there is a definitive, identifiable piece of bread, you got to find out where it went. But the possibility of bread, no, we don't entertain that at all. Which tells us there are many suspicions we could have. There are many doubts we could have. There are many maybes and possibilities. Endless. There is no end. And therefore, not only don't we go back to check, we don't suspect. It is not a valid suspicion. As if to say, suspicion was created to motivate us to become certain. Every doubt is there to be resolved. If you have a doubt as to where that piece of bread went, check your room, and then you will know that it did not come to this room. You have resolved the doubt. But the possibility that chametz came from somewhere unknown, this is not a valid suspicion. This is just paranoid. So even possibilities or suspicions can be either valid or invalid. There are useful suspicions and there are useless suspicions. Well, on that subject, there's a story about a chassid who was very, very strict in his observance of Pesach. And he would come to the city of Lubavitch in Russia to spend Yom Tov with the Rebbe, but he would eat in his motel room, the little bit of food that he prepared for himself, because he wouldn't trust any kitchen, any cook. And so the first time the Rebbe saw him in the course of Yom Tov was after the Seder, when there was a Farbrengen. The Rebbe motioned for him to come up, to approach him, and he said to him, I think there's something not kosher in your water barrel. He had prepared clean water and covered it with a seal so that it would be pure and clean for drinking on Pesach. And the Rebbe said to him, you better go back and check. He went back to his hotel room and he saw that there was actually a kernel of grain at the bottom of his water barrel. He was horrified. He came running back to the Rebbe, and he was beside himself. And he said, Rebbe, what did I do to deserve this? And the Rebbe said to him, we have a code of Jewish law. Sages worked it out. Use a candle to search the house the night before, clean everything, avoid certain foods, certain mixtures. So the sages worked it all out so that we would have a chametz-free Pesach. But you didn't trust them. You didn't trust anybody. And you created or you invented your own stringencies. Well, the sages can be relied upon. Your own stringencies, you can't really depend on them. So you didn't do anything wrong, but you're fallible. So in order to have a really chametz-free home, you need to be a little godly. You need to be infallible. The sages, Torah law, that's infallible because that's godly. So if you follow the rules, you will be fine. You try to improve on the rules, then you're using your human imagination, and that cannot be relied on totally. So that's the answer to question number 2 about how suspicious do we have to be concerning possibilities of something going wrong. You assume the possibility that makes your life livable, not the possibility that makes your life miserable.